Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 26 of the Streamlined Motherhood podcast. So, one of the things that I have noticed about this period of time that we have with all being at home is that it's the perfect time to create new habits. And so, in this episode, I'm going to be walking you through some of the questions I ask myself anytime I want to implement a new habit and the steps that I take to do so. I think you're going to really love this practical episode, and I can't wait to jump in with you. This is the Streamlined Motherhood podcast. I'm Kate Saffel, certified simplicity parenting family life coach and mom of 3. I'm here to guide you back to your intuition, to help you overcome daily overwhelm, and to start feeling confident in the mama and woman you are. Each episode, I'll share tips and encouragement for thriving on your motherhood journey, because this life you're living is way too important to put on autopilot. So whenever we're thinking about creating a new habit, or maybe even changing one that we've had for a long time that we feel like is a bad habit, there's some things that you may want to ask yourself to make sure that this habit change is one that is necessary and is going to be a positive addition to your life. So the one question I would recommend is, who do you truly want to be? And to follow up, why do you want to be her? Do your desires for yourself come from you, like from who you truly are, or from others? It's so important before we even identify habits to change or new ones to adopt to decide their worth to us. Because, it's so common today to base who we think we should be on what others say about us, what we hear in the media, and what we experienced growing up. And so I really want to empower you to choose habits based on what you want for yourself and not what you think you should be doing. Whenever we use the word should, it is a way of giving our freedom of choice to other people, because we're saying that we believe that we need to be doing something because some other person outside of us recommended that we do it. Or maybe even that wasn't explicitly voiced to us, but we just think that is what other people want for us. I know in motherhood, this is so common. We read books or we hear things on social media as to what mothers should be like, what mothers should do. And we kind of internalize that into our identity without first stopping to ask, is this really who I want to be? Like, is this something that I take as truth? Or am I just accepting it as truth because someone who is an expert, or maybe even as just a person you respect, has said that that's what a mother should be? And so these external measures of success, whether that's success as a mother, success in your job, success in creating a home that you're proud of, none of those external measures will ever bring lasting contentment if that is not what your heart truly wants. So I hope that that really sinks in for you, that we should never pursue habit changes that we don't truly want and believe to be right for ourselves. There is so much, encouragement and advice out there to do all the things, right? And before this pandemic and the stay-at-home order, I think many of us engaged in that. I know I was guilty of that myself, of trying to be everything and do everything for my kids and my husband and for my business. And when we're constantly in the act of doing, it doesn't leave space for hearing who we are meant to be and what are the few but quality activities that we want to give our time to. And so I love this quote from Michael Neal, and he's speaking about what is the most important discipline, right? Because again, you'll often hear when it comes to habit shifts, I don't have enough discipline. I have too much on my plate, and so I just have to discipline myself more. Or even we talk about disciplining children. But he says that the most important discipline is, quote, being disciplined enough to not do what you don't want to do, even if everyone around you and the voice inside your head is telling you that you should. Did you catch that? Being disciplined enough to not do what you don't want to do, even if everyone around you and the voice inside your head is telling you that you should. And I think, again, that key word right there is should, right? If you don't have that deep desire, that want, that need to change, why are you forcing it? So we should only choose to do something if it's part of the greater plan for our life legacy and allows us to grow deeper into who we are meant to be. What I see so commonly in my clients and in myself is that we are ruled by perfectionism. And maybe you don't even think of yourself as a perfectionist, right? Like in the classic traditional way. But that desire to do things correctly and right is so widespread in our society because we're fearful of disappointing others. That fear stems from the voices that we heard from our family and our childhood, from the media, from our friend circles. And so I want to encourage you to choose freedom and imperfection over 1,000 tiny deaths of your soul, trying to be something that you're not. You were created to be exactly who you are right now. It's not easy to trust our innate wisdom, right? If that's not something that you've tapped into a lot, it can be difficult to make decisions based on your wisdom. But when we trust more in what the world says to us, we fail to hear the message of our heart. I truly believe that you have divine wisdom inside of you, guiding your actions every single day. When my clients and my community tell me how they're constantly failing and not doing what they need to do, what I hear is that they need permission to be who they are. Because the truth is, you are doing what you need to do. And maybe that looks like choosing rest over busyness or choosing hugs over firm discipline. It might mean staying connected to the truth that is inside of you, even if that's completely different than everything else that you see around you. And so again, yes, this episode is about shifting habits, but I think you can kind of tell at this point that it's so much deeper than that. Because before we get to the habit shifts, right, we have to clear away all the mental clutter of what we think we should be. And so the next step I recommend is that you create a vision of the world that you want to live in, right? Get clear on the exact image of who you want to be that's not motivated by others' desires for you, but it's all from you, from that inner wisdom. When we are internally motivated, the habits are going to be longer lasting and they're going to be more authentic to who it is that we are becoming. When they're externally motivated, that might work for a season because we don't want to disappoint other people. We don't want to fail. And yet, if it's not rooted to who you really are, it's not going to be a habit that will stick with you long term. And this is why when I start working with my clients, I will typically have them create a vision of what their perfect day would be, free of all limitations, which is always can be a hard activity for many of us to imagine a life without limitations. And then I also have them write their obituary so that they can see the big picture of their life and who they are in the world. Okay, so let's say that you have an idea of who you want to be and you are crystal clear on the habits you want to shift and they come from you. Okay, so those are all good things. Next, you want to pick one habit at a time to change because your brain will get so overwhelmed if you are trying to change everything at once. So I highly recommend choosing one, implementing that habit change fully. Now, it may seem like it takes a really long time to establish it, right? I mean, I hear some people say it's 21 days to establish a new habit, or it's 60 days. Here's what I want to tell you. Time doesn't matter. Commit to seeing the habit fully formed if that takes you a year, because you're going to be so much more satisfied and content with yourself when you are a person who follows through on a goal or a commitment that you make. Now, for many of us, the habits that we currently have are motivated by desires that we have. So every habit stems from wanting to either change how we feel or change how we act. If you think about drinking coffee in the morning, which I'm guessing many of you listening are in that habit, we wake up and we feel groggy and tired because if you have kids, you were probably up a lot in the night. And if your kids are older, you're probably still just not sleeping soundly, because that's totally where I'm at. And so we wake up and we have this desire to feel more alert. And the way that we fix that desire is by drinking a cup of coffee or something caffeinated, because that satisfies that need in our brain to feel alert. And then eventually what happens is it creates this association between waking up in the morning and drinking coffee, ultimately becoming a behavioral loop that we find ourselves in. So if you're trying to replace an old habit with a new one, such as I did when I switched from caffeinated coffee to decaf, there's a few things you can do. One, it is very helpful if you remove whatever your trigger is from your environment. And I know that's easier said than done, but let's say sugar is a craving for you, not buying the foods that you crave and not having them in the house will make it that much harder for you to fulfill that craving. It may even mean that you need to go to a different grocery store or create some kind of new action that you take that allows you to circumvent that trigger. So for me, what I did was I couldn't really get rid of coffee in my house because my husband's a big coffee drinker. So what I did instead was I bought super fancy mushroom coffee from Four Sigmatic. Totally not sponsored here. Just let's be clear. But I was very intrigued by this coffee because it promoted alertness without the caffeine. And I thought, okay, well, I'll give that a try. So for me, that was a really good way to kind of indulge the craving for something that would make me feel alert without using the original solution of the caffeinated coffee. And then what I did was I made sure that my routine of having a cup in the morning was still in place, and I made it very attractive to myself. So, I bought like whipped cream to go on the top, and I made sure my pretty mug was out and that the caffeinated coffee was tucked away. So you want to make whatever the habit shift that you're trying to do super easy to implement. Maybe your desire is to, go for a run in the morning. And so go to sleep in your workout clothes, leave your shoes by your bed. If there's certain things that trigger you into not taking the action, let's say you wake up in the morning and you feel really cold, so you think, oh, I don't want to go for a run because I'm going to be cold. So hiding the things that would allow you to not take the action, like say when you're cold, you put on a robe, right? And then suddenly you're in a different cycle of behavior. You're in the I'm being cozy and staying home cycle instead of the I want to get out and run because that's going to help my health. So you hide the things that get you into the wrong cycle and you make the things that help you get into a better cycle, you put those in plain sight. And then for some people, having some kind of reward can be enough to change a habit. For those of us who are not motivated by rewards, having a good reason why this is important to you may be enough. And really, there is so much more to shifting habits than I can cover in this episode. That's why I work with my clients one-on-one to really get to know them and figure out how I can help them change their habits. But for me, I am not motivated by external rewards unless it's one that I've chosen for myself and that I have totally bought into. So for the most part, I was not the sticker chart kid. That kind of stuff didn't work for me. But if I had decided that I wanted to buy into it, then yeah, of course it would work. So get to know yourself, figure out what motivates you. I highly recommend taking Gretchen Rubin's 4 Tendencies quiz. It's free online, and it will give you so much more information into how you are motivated, whether that's internally, externally, or not either of the two. Now, so often we hear people say, I just don't have willpower. I don't have the willpower to change who I am. Here's the thing. We all have some willpower. You do. Because otherwise you would just stay in bed all day and you wouldn't do a single thing. Your willpower is what allows you to go through the actions of getting up and making your kids breakfast and helping them with their schoolwork and doing things of that nature. But willpower is a muscle that you do have to exercise it daily in small amounts. You can't rely on it alone because believing that you can just like muscle your way through something will let you down. So one of the things that you can do is increase your willpower in tiny amounts. An example of this for me was when I was switching to decaf, I slowly reduced my caffeine intake over 2 weeks instead of going cold turkey, because I knew that the headaches that I would have from going cold turkey would make me jump right back into drinking caffeine. So by slowly reducing the amount of caffeinated coffee, I was able to kind of wean myself off of that need. Maybe you are trying to resist sugar and you're just eating candy throughout the day because you have just kind of built up that habit. So instead of saying, I'm not going to eat any candy this entire day, maybe you just say, I'm not going to eat any for 2 hours. And once you can manage going 2 hours, then you increase that to 3, and then 5, and then 12, and then the entire day. So give yourself small wins that help you increase your willpower. And also choose habits that are so easy that you don't really need the motivation to do it. So again, starting in small amounts of, instead of saying, I'm going to work out for an hour every day, maybe I'm going to work out for 5 minutes. Once you have built that small habit change and you believe in yourself, you believe like, yes, it's possible. So what if it's only 5 minutes? 5 minutes is 5 more than you were doing before. And I think so often we don't celebrate those small wins. And that really stems back to the perfectionism that I talked about at the beginning of the episode, of wanting to be the person that we think others think we should be immediately. And that's just impossible. Okay? So take those small wins, my friends. And then finally, it's so important to really get to the root of how you are going to change by focusing on the identity that you need to hold over the outcome that you want to achieve. So asking yourself, what is the outcome that I desire? Who is the type of person who gets the outcome that I want? Okay, so kind of visualizing the type of person who has this habit shift that you want to make. And then following up by asking, do I want to be that person? And if so, what does that type of person believe about themselves? What are the thoughts that motivate them? How does that person feel about themselves? And then how do they act from that place? Now, the reason that you're doing this is because, as you've heard me talk about on so many episodes, our minds are so powerful, and we have to give our brain the thoughts that we need to hold. Now, you may not know how to just immediately produce the thought of someone who can run a marathon, but I bet if that was a habit that you wanted to instill, you could do some reflecting and think like, okay, Someone who is willing to run a marathon, what do they think and believe about themselves? How do they feel when they accomplish that? And what are some actions that they take to show up as that person every day? And over time, you can start to implement some of those thoughts, feelings, and actions into your own life so that, instead of trying to apply this habit band-aid, you are actually becoming the person who does run a marathon. It is so important to act in integrity and be the person who doesn't skip out on herself when it comes to making a habit change. So often, like when we're kind of trying to implement a new habit, we talk ourselves out of it and we find something else to do with our time. But if you were, say, meeting a friend for coffee, or you had a phone date or something with someone who's important to you, and then you suddenly were like, I think I'd rather just go watch some TV, or, I don't know, the dishes need to get done, or I need to go to the grocery store, right? And then you told your friend, like, hey, I'm really sorry, but I've got these other things I need to do, so I'm not going to talk to you today, right? That would be so embarrassing. And your friend would be like, what? Like, I'm not important enough to you that you're choosing all these other things over the date that we had set. But we do this to ourselves all the time. We say, yes, I'm going to work out at 4 p.m. today. And then 4 p.m. rolls around and we're like, yeah, I don't know. I kind of just feel like reading a magazine on the couch instead. Be the person who acts in integrity with who she wants to become. Show up for yourself. Strengthen the belief that you matter. Until you believe that you have worth, you'll continue to act in ways that self-harm. And it may just be little things like eating a little more sugar than you want, or scrolling on your phone a little more than you desire. But I promise you that when you find contentment with yourself, then you will act in integrity with the person that you want to be. But above all, I want to encourage you to be patient and give yourself grace. We are all in this process of becoming, me, you, the whole world. We have to model for our children how to forgive, to offer grace, to keep dusting ourselves off and getting up again when we fail, because this is part of the human experience. Okay, friends, I hope that this episode is encouraging to you. If you need support, please reach out anytime. Feel free to DM me on social or send me an email at hello@thestreamlinedlife.com. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time. Hey mamas, if you enjoyed this episode, did you know that coaching with me one-on-one is the fastest and the best way to implement all of these ideas? I teach my clients exactly how to stop daily overwhelm, to overcome negativity and that feeling that you're never enough. You know what I'm talking about, right? And we do this so that you can confidently become the mama and woman you've always dreamed of being. There's no shame in getting help. We all need a helping hand. So head to thestreamlinedlife.com/life coaching with Kate Saffel. That's SAFFLE to sign up for a free 50-minute consult with me. And together we'll get clear on all of your struggles and a roadmap for how to overcome them. You and I together, we've got this.